Jeff from Blockbuster here, and joining me is Tim Batey, the originator, founder of Blockbuster. And we just thought we would do a quick video talking to Tim about how Blockbuster got started, goods, bads, troubles that he's gone through, and kind of how the processor and the industry has progressed over the years. So, Tim, thanks for coming along. Thanks for designing great products too. Let's get started on the very first processor you built. Approximately what time frame was that?
Well, the very first one that was built was been in the early 80s. And we just, the reason for it was for a necessity. My family always was in the logging business. My father especially, his father, and even my mother's father, who I never met either one of my grandparents, but that was their background, was logging. And
in the middle of Iowa.
In the middle of Iowa, yep. And Dad had whole tree chippers, we had sawmills. We were very involved in logging. It was a pretty big logging operation, and we all split wood and burned wood, and we got tired of doing it the old-fashioned way. You know, it was, so that's how Father loved to build things.
Yeah.
That was kind of his Achilles heel, actually, but he loved to build stuff. And the first one he built was built out of a bunch of used sawmill parts and valves and an old engine out of a 6-cylinder Ford he had over the hill. And that's how he put the first one together. And that's what we just used it, you know, for ourselves. Never thought about selling them.
Sure. Were there any other processors around available that you knew of at the time?
None that we knew of, and then later found out that there was, but we did not know of any processors. I'd never seen anything like that, neither Dad. And
so you guys basically started at ground zero, not really knowing anything that was out there. You built this for yourself to save your back and increase efficiency and speed.
Yep. And then, you know, instead there's 5 of us boys and Dad, instead of all 5 of us, 6 of us out there splitting wood, one of us could go out there and do what all of us were doing, you know. And so it was a huge improvement. And we were just like, and we wanted to utilize coal logs, you know, the logs you couldn't sell for pallets and stuff, and to try to utilize them. And so we did get into selling some firewood at first. That was kind of our niche then. We wanted to do that. And selling firewood in Iowa was not easy. And so that's how it got started. We just, you know, and Dad having the logging background, a lot of sawmill, wood chippers, that kind of thing. So he, you know, kind of had an idea of what he wanted to do. And
what was the horsepower of the first engine?
Well, it was just a 6-cylinder Ford. So I'm not even sure what that would have been. I think maybe they're rated at 350 to something like that.
Was the first processor, so we're standing right in front of the 2222, similar in size?
Yes, yep, very similar to this machine right here in size.
Yep.
It just, and the way it worked was pretty similar. It just was different sequences, things have got moved around a lot and so on. The clamp used to be on the other side and it always pushed the log away from so you learn a lot of those things as you, in fact, that was the thing that, when he accidentally sold it, he had an old logging buddy from...
Accidentally, huh?
Yeah.
Accidentally sold it.
He did. And had an old logging buddy that they wanted to buy it, and he put a big price on it, he thought, and he bought it anyway. So and he was disappointed that he sold it. And I said, no, now we can build one like we want. We can make all those changes and improve it. And so we built a new one. And Dad and I pretty much built that one. And so that's how that got started. And then we thought, hey, maybe we can sell these, you know. And
so machine number 2, did number 1 have a name?
No.
Nope.
It was no name.
Did number 2 have a name?
Eventually, yeah. That's when we became Blockbuster. Yeah.
Okay. And that was a B1?
Yeah, that was a B1.
A B1. Yep. So a B1 is comparable to the 2222.
Yep.
Okay. And you built a second one kind of for yourselves again, since you accidentally sold the first one.
That's right.
And did you accidentally sell the second one?
No, and as we were building it, that's what we got, you know, pondering was, you know, maybe we should build these and sell them, you know, and that, so actually before we got it done, we were kind of headed that direction.
Okay.
You know,
did you marketing. Okay, if we're talking in the mid 80s or late 80s, how did word of mouth? How did you guys get out there?
Mostly back then it was magazines,
Yeah,
and logging shows. And that was one of the first show we went to, is in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. And that was and that's when we found out that there was other companies that made them. It kind of gave you a sick feeling to your stomach, and you're thinking, what did we get into? You know, I wished I'd have known all this, because it wasn't the internet. You know, it was 1986, 87, and you just couldn't find out all these things at just the push of a button. And so that's how we found out. There was two other companies, I think two or three at that show at the time. Some of those companies are still around. They just quit building processors. Actually, they're big companies, build a lot of sawmill equipment and so on, but they just kind of got out of that side of it. And some of the other ones, a couple of the other ones are still building machines.
all right. Did you, when you went to this show, did you find something that was like, wow, that's awesome? Or did anyone ever come to the Blockbuster booth and go, wow, this is a neat?
We really had, the first show was really great. It really was. We got a lot. We ended up being set up right beside one of the processors and a couple more, but right from the start, they really seemed to like the design of it, just because of the simplicity of it and how easy it was to run. And back then we didn't even put a seat on them, you know, and some of the guys would complain about, well, there's no seat, was, you know, and so, but yeah, it was kind of scary at first, disappointing, you know. We were surprised to see the other machines there, but then to see all the great interest in it and stuff, that really helped, you know.
How many years, or what was the scaling or growth rate like over the first few years? Did it just continue to keep growing and growing?
For the first few years it did, and then we got into a time where it just kind of, and we're talking, you know, we might sell 5-6 machines a year, you know. That was kind of the growth rate. And I always thought, boy, if we could ever get to 25, and gosh, we got to that eventually, and, you know, surpass that by 3 times, you know. And so, but yeah, it was all just slow going, you know, just word of mouth. That was your best advertisement with your customers, that you could send somebody to look at their machine, you know, and that was really helpful.
And that still seems, so I've only been with Blockbuster for almost coming up on almost a year.
Yeah.
And I'm just in awe of how good of a reaction that I get when I call a Blockbuster owner, kind of out of the blue, introduce myself, and it seems like you've already got a friendship built up. It sounds like the service and support over the years has been a key contributing factor to the success. And I don't know if there's any other awesome contributions that, or what are the keys to success of Blockbuster? What's really made it successful?
I think the biggest thing is like you were saying, is taking care of your customers, you know, and by not having dealers, that is, and we didn't think of it that way at first, you know. We couldn't really have a dealer network. We weren't smart enough. But now we feel like that's what's really helped us, is because you have that constant relationship with your customer. They're not going through a dealer. And so many times your customer can call you on the phone and you can take care of a problem, not just that day, but maybe in just a few minutes or a few hours, and troubleshoot it and do that kind of thing. And where if you had dealers, those dealers, you're not only separating yourself from your customer, you're putting layers in between you and your customer. You know, well, I can't get your machine and look at it till day after tomorrow or something. Right. Where this way, it's pretty instant. And I think that's what really creates a great relationship, is that you're directly working with your customer.
There's been a lot of customers calling in, or people that aren't really familiar with Blockbuster, that have asked, do we have a dealer network? And I said no. And as of right now, I don't think we have plans to, just for what you said. You've got that A to B communication between the Blockbuster and the customer. And my response has been, until we can't support you over the phone, tell me the reason to have a good dealer network. And anyone that's called in and talked with Tony, that guy can troubleshoot anything over the phone.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can get parts overnighted the next day.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing, is just dealers have to get paid. They have to make some money.
Yeah.
And if we can not necessarily cut them out, but if we do not need them, we can provide a machine at a better value than the competition with dealer networks.
Yeah, and better service, because now they're dealing with the people that build the product.
Right.
So now, like you say, Tony and troubleshooting, you and troubleshooting, because you guys know you're building it, you're familiar with it. Where if you go to a dealer network, you got to get all those folks familiar and trained, and you know, they're still going to be calling Tony. We always call Tony a rock star. You know, go to a trade show and they stand in line to just thank him, say thanks, Tony, for being there and helping us. And it is a neat, you know, it's really fun to go to shows, and you've got to experience that. And the customers come up just to say hi and talk to you, and you know, nobody's mad at you or throwing rocks or nothing.
Funny story, we were up in Eugene, Oregon here at this last show, and a gentleman came up and I was talking with them, and I said, yeah, and I go, have you ever talked to Tony? He's like, is that Tony over there? He ran over there and just gave Tony a hug. Never met him or gave him a hug. So I just, yeah, it's almost like a family, or a very tight network.
It's a neat system. And what's very interesting is there's other companies now, big companies, that are starting to follow that suit. Even though they have dealers, they'll let you call them. I just experienced this with I can just say this, a camper I bought, and it's new, and I had some troubles, and they get you on the phone, and they walk you through, and you tell them, show them what's wrong, and they get you the part ordered. And in some cases, if they think it's okay, they'll send it to you and let you put it on, just like we do. And I appreciate that. So otherwise, you have to take that to a dealer, have them troubleshoot it, figure out what they need, and then a lot of times order the part, bring it in, and so that machine's sitting there for days, you know, where this is. So there's big companies starting to use that type of warranty work.
And the other thing, as you mentioned earlier, simplicity. That's one thing. I've got an engineering background, and I'm always asking customers, what do we want to change? 99% of the time, don't change anything.
Yeah.
It works. It's robust.
Yeah.
It's easy to fix. It's easy to troubleshoot. And as much as you want to add gizmos and gadgets and this and that, it's
especially with your background, you like that.
But this works. And so it's, as much as I want to go and change and tweak and everything, well, it's not broke, don't fix it.
But I've always felt, you know, there's always room for improvement, you know, and I think you guys are it's in good hands that way, because you have that engineering, and you have other engineers here, and you have that a bigger, better facility than what we ever had. And I think you guys can take the next steps with Blockbuster and make those good improvements, for their improvements, not changes. Now, that was always my goal. We're going to change this. I said, no, if it's not an improvement, we're not going to change it. We always have to improve to make a change. Sometimes you're forced to make changes because you can't get that certain part, or you can't get that certain product, and you have to, you know, get what you can get. But and I think you guys see that. I think you really handle that good, where you'll make improvements, not just changes, you know.
It's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Improvements, not changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so lessons learned over the years in the business side of things. What are some of the maybe regrets, or biggest lessons learned, or maybe you had to eat crow sometime, or any major challenges that you've had to face that you're willing to share? Maybe you're not willing to.
Some of them you probably shouldn't, but you know, and for the most part, there's always, you know, after almost 40 years, there's always going to be horror stories, and but man, there's not very many. There's just been a lot of good experiences, and a lot of good people that you meet along the way and stuff, you know. it's just a lot of great folks like you're seeing, you know.
That's another thing. Coming again from the ag background here in the Midwest, a lot of good people. All of these customers are willing to talk to you and show off the machine, as you mentioned. That's been great. So thank you guys for all the existing Blockbuster owners that have been willing to show off the machines and share their knowledge and their experience with Blockbuster. Thank you guys for that. Since we are stuck in Iowa, I mean, there's all over the country, New York, Oregon, Washington. It doesn't really matter. You call an owner and they're like, yep, send them my name, my phone number, tell them to contact me, and we'll be happy to show the machine. So that's been awesome. Yeah, and you can't thank the customers enough. They're the ones that just really have, you know, made it work, you know. Yeah. And they treat, so many of them treat it like it's, you know, it is theirs, but they just are, they're so proud of it. We have pictures. I still have these pictures hanging in my office that show guy with his birthday cake. His wife had made it look like a Blockbuster Firewood processor, used pretzels for logs and did things like that. Another one, him and his wife and his kids are standing in the elevator, and that was a Christmas card, you know. Another one, his little boy's birthday, and he's got this little toy chainsaw with a Blockbuster hat. I mean, you just think, wow, that, you know, that's just, you know, they're part of the family, you know. They really are. It's just neat, you know, to see all that and meet people. And and we got teased a lot, you know. Iowa, what's the world? I have logging in Iowa, you know, and you get that, but it happens even in Iowa. It does. As we look around, we've got a few trees in the background, but there's a lot of history to Iowa and logging. You know, some of the largest sawmills in the world were in Iowa and just across the river from Clinton in Illinois. And the Mississippi, they floated the logs down the river. So there's a huge, from years ago, there's a huge, I love this story because that's where Weyerhaeuser started. He was an immigrant working across the country and stopped on the Illinois side of the river across from Clinton. There's a sawmill museum in Clinton, Iowa, and it tells you all about that. It's just kind of neat. And then they say, logging in Iowa, and I'd always have to tell them that story, you know. Well, that's where Weyerhaeuser got started, you know. And then they cleared out all the logs, and now we have a lot of farmland, hogs and farmland now. So well, and going back to the history, you have one of the first. Yep, I still have the first machine that Dad and I built together. So and that gets run every year at Old Thrashers. Yep, still runs, still works great. If any of you guys are looking for a vacation, that's always on Labor Day, right? Labor Day weekend. Ends on Labor Day, 5 days prior to Labor Day. So it starts out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But yeah, that Old Thrashers reunion, steam engines. Largest steam engine show in the world. Yeah, and the old first Blockbusters making all the firewood for. We split about 5 to 7 semi-load for them every year. And it works great. It just works wonderful. It got sold in Iowa and traveled around a bit, and a guy traded in for some new equipment, and we just kept it years ago. And it was just lucky that I think you're dealing with that same company right now with for some new equipment. Yeah. That is neat. It is. We were the first company to make a floating head. We were the first company to introduce air. We were the first company to do direct drop. We were the first company in the U.S. to start making little machines. And that's always a difference to me. An elevator elevates, a conveyor conveys. And we've made conveyors for people that do a lot of... We're going to start, sorry to interrupt, but we're going to start a online controversial statement here, but this is good. So